The NBA and Stanley Cup Finals keep chugging along. The Game 3s have been played, so let's go over those. Starting on the NBA side of things, the Denver Nuggets taking Game 3 in Miami, beating the Heat 109-94. The immediate thing that jumps out to you immediately is both Jokic and Jamal Murray both with triple-doubles in this game. Both of them with 10 assists, Jokic with 32 points and an astonishing 21 rebounds, while Murray put in 34 points and had 10 rebounds in his own right. I do believe that Christian Braun did have some nice minutes off the bench for the Nuggets as well, and Aaron Gordon putting up a double-double certainly doesn't hurt. For the Miami Heat side of things, I do think it has to be a little bit more than Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo stepping up and having solid games. You have to get major contributions from some of your other players. Gabe Vincent and Max Strus were once again ice cold from the field. The bench guys, they had some decent contributions. Kyle Lowry getting some good stuff in there. Caleb Martin doing some good things, but I don't think anybody coming off the bench for the Miami Heat really did. They really never had enough of an impact to turn the tide of this game, especially in the second half. Now, for the first half of this game, this looked like it was going to be another banger like we had in Game 2. It was neck and neck. Both teams are going back and forth with momentum. Sometimes the Miami Heat would go on a run, but then that would come with a response from Denver and vice versa. But late in the second quarter, the Nuggets would go on a bit of a heater to take the lead by 5 going into halftime, and they would pick up right where they left off at the start of the second half. And essentially, once the third quarter started, it was Denver's game. It was no coincidence to me that the Heat have been stifled offensively with Max Strus and Gabe Vincent both off from the outside shooting, and that is a credit to Denver's defense. They are definitely putting in a bit of effort to make sure that those shots that they're taking, maybe they aren't contested, maybe they're contested, or they're getting them off the rhythm a little bit. Although I'm pretty sure I saw Max Strus just airball kind of an open 3 to start the second half for the Heat, and that was one of those things where it just kind of turns momentum. It's a bit of a confidence shaker for the rest of the team there, and Denver definitely took advantage where it felt like very early in that third quarter they were up 5, and then if you blinked and you missed it, they were up by 11 pretty darn quickly. Jamal Murray, obviously, his improvement from Game 2 to Game 3 cannot be understated. He's also an X factor. I don't think it's much of a coincidence that Miami's win in Game 2 that came when he wasn't as explosive as he was in Game 3, where in Game 2, Denver almost did come back, and Jamal Murray was a decent part of that last-second comeback effort where he knocked down a couple of contested threes. So it'll be interesting to see how Miami Heat responds in Game 4 tonight at 8:30. We'll see if Miami can even up this series and continue to defy odds as they have been. Although, again, when Denver's star power really gets going, I'm not sure if Jokic containment is possible, and if Jamal Murray is going to put up triple-double performances on top of that. That is one heck of a mountain that Miami has to climb. And so far, when both of those guys have been firing on all cylinders, it's been just a bit too much for Miami so far. But again, we've seen the Heat, proving stuff like what I just said, where it looks like the Denver's unstoppable. The Heat have been taking statements like those and making them look silly, like ones I just made. They've been proving people wrong all throughout this playoff run. Maybe they'll continue to do that in Game 4, but if Denver is able to take Game 4 tonight, a 3-1 deficit might be a bit too much for Miami to handle. Now, on the NHL side, home ice has reigned supreme so far in this series. The Panthers winning 3-2 in overtime against the Vegas Golden Knights. Florida getting a victory in a must-win game. If they went down 3-0 in this series, you might as well just hand the cup to Vegas. It wouldn't have been if but when. But now, however, this series is kind of up in the air, more so now than it was a couple days ago. Florida comes out and they are a house of fire in the first period early in the game, resulting in a Brandon Montour goal. Later in the first period, it would be William Carrier boarding Gudas. However, Radko Gudas would respond with a cross-check that is called, resulting in a 4-on-4, and during that 4-on-4, Anthony Duclair is called for tripping, and Mark Stone would tip a shot past Bobrovsky on that 4-on-3 power play for Vegas. In the second period, both teams were held scoreless through most of that period until Barkov was called for interference, and Marchessault scoring a goal off of a really good pass from Jack Eichel on that power play for Vegas, and the score would be 2-1 in favor of the Golden Knights heading into the third period. Now, for most of that third period, it looked pretty bleak for Florida, in my opinion. Florida they weren't getting any goals on their power plays. That has been one of the That's been one of the more lopsided stats where goals on the power play coming into the series, and it still is pretty lopsided, but Florida was able to survive this one. They weren't able to get much going 5-on-5. However, Bobrovsky was back to form. Those first 2 games, he was looking a little shaky, especially in Game 2 when he got pulled, but he was back to playoff form. In this one, he was a brick wall, and they needed him to be. Bob kept them in the game last night. They went empty net with about 3 minutes left, not able to get much momentum. But of course, it is Matthew Tkachuk who was in the right place at the right time. He was in the perfect spot off of I believe it was a Carter Verhaeghe shot, and he was right there for the rebound. Nothing that anybody else could do about it. Great positioning from Tkachuk there. Adin Hill was way out of the net. No chance he was recovering on that shot. Tied 2-2. Florida pushes for a game winner within regulation, but we go to overtime. And again, who else could have been but Matthew Tkachuk to tie up that game when Florida's backs were against the wall in the series? Now, in overtime, it was Vegas with all the momentum at first. However, goalie Bob was holding steady, and it was Carter Verhaeghe scoring less than 5 minutes into overtime, and it was the Panthers' first shot of the overtime period in general. So Florida makes this a series. Game 4 tomorrow night in Sunrise. And again, if you go down 3-0, it's not a matter of if the Vegas Golden Knights would have won the cup, but when. However, now the series is still very much up in the air. It's anyone's ball game on both fronts for the NBA and the NHL. Both of the Florida teams trailing 2-1. We'll see if they're able to even up those series and create a best of 3 situation if the series are tied 2-2, or if either Denver or Vegas can take a commanding 3-1 lead in their respective series. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far into it, I will see you at the next one.